Section 24 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Game of Life by John Godfrey Saxe. There's a game much in fashion. I think it's called euchre, though I never have played for pleasure or lucre, in which, when the cards are in certain conditions, the players appear to have changed their positions, and one of them cries in a confident tone, "I think I may venture to go it alone." While watching the game, 'tis a whim of the bard's, a moral to draw from that skirmish of cards, and to fancy he finds in the trivial strife some excellent hints for the battle of life, where, whether the prize be a ribbon or throne, the winner is he who can go it alone. When great Galileo proclaimed that the world in a regular orbit was ceaselessly whirled, and got, not a convert for all of his pains, but only derision and prison and chains, "It moves for all that," was his answering tone, for he knew, like the earth, he could go it alone. When Kepler, with intellect piercing afar, discovered the laws of each planet and star, and doctors, who ought to have lauded his name, derided his learning and blackened his fame, "I can wait," he replied, "till the truth you shall own," for he felt in his heart he could go it alone. Alas, for the player who idly depends in the struggle of life upon kindred or friends! Whatever the value of blessings like these, they can never atone for inglorious ease, nor comfort the coward who finds, with a groan, that his clutches have left him to go it alone. There's something, no doubt, in the hand you may hold: wealth, family, culture, wit, beauty, and gold. The fortunate owner may fairly regard as, each in its way, a most excellent card. Yet the game may be lost, with all these for your own, unless you've the courage to go it alone. In battle or business, whatever the game, in law or love, it is ever the same. In the struggle for power, or the scramble for pelf, let this be your motto: rely on yourself. For whether the prize be a ribbon or throne, the victor is he who can go it alone. End of section. Section 25 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Prejudice by Charlotte Perkins Stetson. I was climbing up a mountain path with many things to do, important business of my own, and other people's too, when I ran against a prejudice that quite cut off the view. My work was such as could not wait, my path quite clearly showed. My strength and time were limited. I carried quite a load, and there that bulking prejudice sat all along the road. So I spoke to him politely, for he was huge and high, and begged that he would move a bit, and let me travel by. He smiled, but as for moving, he didn't even try. And then I reasoned quietly with that colossal mule. The time was short, no other path, the mountain winds were cool. I argued like a Solomon, he sat there like a fool. Then I flew into a passion, I danced and howled and swore. I pelted and belaboured him till I was stiff and sore. He got as mad as I did, but he sat there as before. And then I begged him on my knees. I might be kneeling still, if so I hoped to move that mass of obdurate ill will, as well invite the monument to vacate Bunker's Hill. So I sat before him helpless, in an ecstasy of woe. The mountain mists were rising fast, the sun was sinking low, when a sudden inspiration came, as sudden winds do blow. I took my hat, I took my stick, my load I settled fair. I approached that awful incubus with an absent-minded air, and I walked directly through him as if he wasn't there. End of section. Section 26 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Poor and the Rich by James Russell Lowell. The rich man's son inherits lands, and piles of brick and stone and gold, and tender flesh that fears the cold, nor dares to wear a garment old. A heritage, it seems to me, one would not care to hold in fee. The rich man's son inherits cares. The bank may break, the factory burn. Some breath may burst his bubble shares, and soft white hands would scarcely earn a living that would suit his turn. A heritage, it seems to me, one would not care to hold in fee. What does the poor man's son inherit? Stout muscles and a sinewy heart, a hardy frame, a hardier spirit. King of two hands, he does his part in every useful toil and art. A heritage, it seems to me, a king might wish to hold in fee. What does the poor man's son inherit? Wishes are joyed with humble things, a rank adjudged by toil-worn merit, content that from enjoyment springs, a heart that in his labor sings. A heritage, it seems to me, a king might wish to hold in fee. What does the poor man's son inherit? A patience learned by being poor, courage if sorrow come to bear it, a fellow feeling that is sure to make the outcast bless his door. A heritage, it seems to me, a king might wish to hold in fee. O rich man's son, there is a toil that with all others level stands. Large charity doth never soil, but only whitens soft white hands. This is the best crop from thy lands. A heritage, it seems to me, worth being rich to hold in fee. O poor man's son, scorn not thy state. There is worse weariness than thine. In being merely rich and great, work only makes the soul to shine, and makes rest fragrant and benign. A heritage, it seems to me, worth being poor to hold in fee. Both, heirs to some 6 feet of sod, are equal in the earth at last. Both, children of the same dear God, prove title to your heirship vast by record of a well-filled past. A heritage, it seems to me, well worth a life to hold in fee. End of section. Section 27 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Engineer's Story from the Denver Post. Well, yes, 'tis a hair-curling story. I would it could not be recalled. The terrible fright of that hell-tinctured night is the cause of my head being bald. I was running the Get There Express, sir, on the Yankee Creek Jerkwater line, and the track along there was as crooked, I swear, as the growth of a field pumpkin vine. My run was a night one, and nights on the Yank were as black as the coal piled back there on the tank. We pulled out of Tenderfoot Station a day and almost a half late, and every dern wheel was a pounding the steel at a wildly extravagant rate. My fireman kept piling the coal in the jaws of the old 94, till the sweat from his nose seemed to play through a hose and splashed round his feet on the floor, as we thundered along like a demon in flight, a ripping a streak through the breast of the night. As we rounded the curve on the mountain, full 60 an hour, I will swear, just ahead was a sight that with blood-freezing fright would have raised a stuffed buffalo's hair. The bridge over Ute Creek was burning, the flames shooting up in their glee. My God, how they gleamed in the air till they seemed like the fiery tongues imps on a spree. Just snickered and sparkled and laughed like they knowed I'd make my next trip on a different road. In frenzy I reached for the throttle, but 'twas stuck and refused to obey. I yelled in a fright, for our maddening flight I felt that I never could stay. Then wildly I grasped the big lever, threw her over, then held my hot breath, and waited for what I assuredly thought was a sure and terrible death. Then came the wild crash, and with horror-fringed yell, down into that great fiery chasm I fell. When I came to myself, I was lying on the floor of the bedroom. My wife sat astride of my form and was making it warm for her darling, you bet your sweet life. My hair she had clutched in her fingers and was jamming my head on the floor. Yet I yelled with delight when I found that my fright was a horrible dream, nothing more. I had wildly grabbed one of her ankles, she said, and reversed her clear over the head of the bed. End of section.
Section 28 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Seeing's Not Believing by Thomas Haynes Bailey. I saw her, as I fancied, fair, yes, fairest of earth's creatures. I saw the purest red and white o'erspread her lovely features. She fainted, and I sprinkled her, her malady relieving. I washed both rose and lily off. Oh, seeing's not believing. I looked again, again I longed to breathe love's fond confession. I saw her eyebrows formed to give her face its arch expression. But gum is very apt to crack, and whilst my breast was heaving, it so fell out that one fell off. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw the tresses on her brow so beautifully braided. I never saw in all my life locks look so well as they did. She walked with me one windy day. Ye zephyrs, why so thieving? The lady lost her flaxen wig. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw her form by nature's hand so prodigally finished. she were less perfect if enlarged, less perfect if diminished. Her toilette I surprised, the worst of wonders then achieving. None knew the bustle I perceived. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw, when costly gems I gave, the smile with which she took them, and if she said no tender things, I've often seen her look them. I saw her my affianced bride, and then, my mansion leaving, she ran away with Colonel Jones. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw another maiden soon, and struggled to detain her. I saw her plain enough. In fact, few women could be plainer. 'Twas said that at her father's death a plum she'd be receiving. I saw that father's house and grounds. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw her mother. She was decked with furbelows and feathers. I saw distinctly that she wore silk stockings in all weathers. I saw, beneath a load of gems, the matron's bosom heaving. I saw 1,000 signs of wealth. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw her father, and I spoke of marriage in his study. But would he let her marry me? Alas, alas, how could he? I saw him smile a glad consent, my anxious heart relieving. And then I saw the settlements. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw the daughter, and I named my moderate finances. She spurned me not, she gave me one of her most tender glances. I saw her father's bank. Thought I, there cash is safe from thieving. I saw my money safely lodged. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw the bank, the shutters up. I could not think what they meant. The old infirmity of firms. The bank had just stopped payment. I saw my future father then was ruined, past retrieving. Like me, without a single sou. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw the banker's wife had got the fortune settled on her. What cared he, when the creditors talked loudly of dishonour? I saw his name in the Gazette, but soon I stared, perceiving he bought another house and grounds. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw, yes, as plain as could be, I saw the banker's daughter. She saw me too, and called for sal volatile and water. She said that she had just espoused a rich old man, conceiving that I was dead or gone to jail. Oh, seeing's not believing. I saw a friend, and freely spoke my mind on the transaction. Her brother heard it, and he called, demanding satisfaction. We met. I fell, that brother's ball in my left leg receiving. I have 2 legs, true, one is cork. Oh, seeing's not believing. End of section. Section 29 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Cordle has been made a Mason by Douglas Jerrold. Now, Mr. Cordle, I say. Oh, you can't be asleep already, I know. Now, what I mean to say is this. There's no use, none at all, in our having any disturbance about the matter, but at last my mind's made up, Mr. Cordle. I shall leave you. Either I know all you've been doing tonight, or tomorrow morning I shall quit the house. No, there's an end of the marriage state, I think, and an end of all confidence between man and wife. If a husband's to have secrets and keep 'em all to himself, pretty secrets they must be when his own wife can't know 'em. Not fit for any decent person to know, I'm sure, if that's the case. Now, Cordle, don't let us quarrel. There's a good soul. Tell me, what's it all about? A pack of nonsense, I dare say. Still, not that I care much about it. Still, I should like to know. There's a dear. Eh? Oh, don't tell me there's nothing in it. I know better. I'm not a fool, Mr. Cordle. I know there's a good deal in it. Now, Cordle, just tell me a little bit of it. I'm sure I'd tell you anything. You know I would. Well? And you're not going to let me know the secret, eh? You mean to say you're not? Now, Cordle, you know it's a hard matter to put me in a passion. Not that I care about the secret itself. No, I wouldn't give a button to know it, for it's all nonsense, I'm sure. It isn't the secret I care about. It's the slight, Mr. Cordle. It's the studied insult that a man pays to his wife when he thinks of going through the world keeping something to himself which he won't let her know. Man and wife one, indeed. I should like to know how that can be when a man's a mason, when he keeps a secret that sets him and his wife apart. Ha! You men make the laws, and so you take good care to have all the best of them to yourselves, otherwise a woman ought to be allowed a divorce when a man becomes a mason. When he's got a sort of corner cupboard in his heart, a secret place in his mind that his poor wife isn't allowed to rummage. Was there ever such a man? A man indeed, a brute. Yes, Mr. Cordle, an unfeeling, brutal creature, when you might oblige me, and you won't. I'm sure I don't object to your being a mason, not at all. Cordle, I dare say it's a very good thing. I dare say it is. It's only your making a secret of it that vexes me. But you'll tell me. You'll tell your own Margaret? You won't? You're a wretch, Mr. Cordle. End of section. Section 30 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Mrs. Cordle's Lecture by Douglas Jerrold. There, Mr. Cordle, I hope you're in a little better temper than you were this morning. There, you needn't begin to whistle. People don't come to bed to whistle. But it's like you. I can't speak that you don't try to insult me. Once I used to say you were the best creature living. Now you get quite a fiend. Do let you rest. No, I won't let you rest. It's the only time I have to talk to you, and you shall hear me. I'm put upon all day long. It's very hard if I can't speak a word at night, and it isn't often I open my mouth, goodness knows. Because once in your lifetime your shirt wanted a button, you must almost swear the roof off the house. You didn't swear? Ha, Mr. Cordle, you don't know what you do when you're in a passion. You were not in a passion, weren't you? Well, then I don't know what a passion is, and I think I ought by this time. I've lived long enough with you, Mr. Cordle, to know that. It's a pity you haven't something worse to complain of than a button off your shirt. If you'd some wives, you would, I know. I'm sure I'm never without a needle and thread in my hand. What with you and the children, I'm made a perfect slave of. And what's my thanks? Why, if once in your life a button's off your shirt, what do you say at? I say once, Mr. Cordle, or 2 or 3 times at most. I'm sure, Cordle, no man's buttons in the world are better looked after than yours. I only wish I'd kept the shirts you had when you were first married. I should like to know where were your buttons then. Yes, it is worth talking of. But that's how you always try to put me down. You fly into a rage, and then, if I only try to speak, you won't hear me. That's how you men always will have all the talk to yourselves. A poor woman isn't allowed to get a word in. A nice notion you have of a wife, to suppose she's nothing to think of but her husband's buttons. A pretty notion indeed you have of marriage. Ha! If poor women only knew what they had to go through, what with buttons, and one thing and another, they'd never tie themselves up to the best man in the world, I'm sure. What would they do, Mr. Cordle? Why, I'd do much better without you, I'm certain. And it's my belief, after all, that the button wasn't off the shirt. It's my belief that you pulled it off, that you might have something to talk about. Oh, you're aggravating enough when you like for anything. All I know is, it's very odd that the button should be off the shirt, for I'm sure no woman's a greater slave to her husband's buttons than I am. I only say it's very odd. However, there's one comfort, it can't last long. I'm worn to death with your temper, and shan't trouble you a great while. Ha! You may laugh, and I dare say you would laugh, I've no doubt of it. That's your love, that's your feeling. I know that I'm sinking every day, though I say nothing about it, and when I'm gone we shall see how your second wife will look after your buttons. You'll find out the difference, then. Yes, Cordle, you'll think of me then, for then, I hope, you'll never have a blessed button to your back. End of section.
Section 31 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Jim Bludso by Colonel John Hay. Well, no, I can't tell where he lives, because he don't live, you see. Leastways, he's got out of the habit of living like you and me. Where have you been for the last 3 years that you haven't heard folks tell how Jimmy Bludso passed in his checks the night of the Prairie Belle? He warn't no saint. Them engineers is all pretty much alike. One wife in Natchez under the Hill, and another one here in Pike. A careless man in his talk was Jim, and an awkward man in a row. But he never pinked, and he never lied. I reckon he never knowed how. And this was all the religion he had, to treat his engine well, never be passed on the river, to mind the pilot's bell. And if ever the Prairie Belle took fire, 1,000 times he swore he'd hold her nozzle agin the bank till the last soul got ashore. All boats has their day on the Mississippi, and her day came at last. The Movastar was a better boat, but the Belle, she wouldn't be passed. And so came tearing along that night the oldest craft on the line, with a nigger squat on her safety valve and her furnaces crammed rosin and pine. The fire bust out as she cleared the bar and burnt a hole in the night, and quick as a flash she turned and made for that willer bank on the right. There was running and cursing, but Jim yelled out over all the infernal roar, "I'll hold her nozzle agin the bank till the last galoot's ashore." Through the hot black breath of the burning boat, Jim Bludso's voice was heard, and they all had trust in his cussedness and knowed he would keep his word. And sure's you're born, they all got off afore the smokestacks fell, and Bludso's ghost went up alone in the smoke of the Prairie Belle. He warn't no saint, but at judgment I'd run my chance with Jim 'longside of some pious gentleman that wouldn't shook hands with him. He'd seen his duty a dead sure thing, and went for it thar and then. And Christ ain't a-goin' to be too hard on a man that died for men. End of section. Section 32 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. How Uncle Mose Counted the Eggs by Anonymous. Old Mose, who sells eggs and chickens on the streets of Austin for a living, is as honest an old Negro as ever lived. But he has got the habit of chatting familiarly with his customers. Hence, he frequently makes mistakes in counting out the eggs they buy. He carries his wares around in a small cart drawn by a diminutive donkey. He stopped in front of the residence of Mrs. Samuel Burton. The old lady came out to the gate to make the purchases. "Have you got any eggs this morning, Uncle Mose?" she asked. "Yes, indeed I has. Just got in 10 dozen from de country." "Are they fresh?" "I guarantee 'em. I knows dem fresh, just de same as if I'd laid 'em myself." "I'll take 9 dozen. You can count them in this basket." "All right, Mum." He counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can rely on 'em being fresh. How's your son coming on at the school? He must be most grown." "Yes, Uncle Mose. He is a clerk in a bank at Galveston." "Why, how old am the boy?" "He is 18." "You don't told me so." 18 and getting a salary already. 18, counting. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And how's your gal coming on? She was most growed up the last time I seed her." "She is married and living in Dallas." "Well, I declare, how the time scoots away. And you'll say she has childens? Why, how old am the gal? She must be about it.
33.
And that's so, counting. 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43. It am so singular that you has such old children. I can't believe you has grandchildren. You don't look more than 40 years old yourself."
"Nonsense, old man. I see you want to flatter me. When a person gets to be 53 years old—"
53? I just done gwineter believe it. 53, 54, 55, 56. I want you to pay attention when I counts the eggs, so there'll be no mistake. 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. Oh, well, that am a warm day. 'Tis am time of year when I feel as I's getting old myself. I ain't long for this world. You comes from an old family. When your father died, he was 70 years old.
72, Uncle Mose.
That's old, sure. 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79. And your mother? She was one of the noblest looking ladies I ever see. You reminds me of her so much. She lived to most 100. I believe she was done past a centurion when she died."
"No, Uncle Mose, she was only 96 when she died."
"Well, then she wasn't no chicken when she died, I know that." 96, 97, 98, 99, 100. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 108 nice fresh eggs. Just 9 dozen. And here I am, one more egg in case I has discounted myself."
Old Mose went on his way rejoicing. A few days afterward, Mrs. Burton said to her husband, "I am afraid we will have to discharge Matilda. I am satisfied she steals the milk and eggs. I am positive about the eggs,
for I bought them day before yesterday, and now about half of them are gone. I stood right there and heard old Mose count them myself, and there were 9 dozen. End of section. Section 33 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Negro Baby's Funeral by Will Carleton. I was walking in Savannah past a church decayed and dim, when there slowly through the windows came a plaintive funeral hymn. And the sympathy awakened, and a wonder quickly grew, till I found myself environed in a little Negro pew. Out at front a colored couple sat in sorrow, nearly wild. On the altar was a coffin, in the coffin was a child. I could picture him when living, curly hair, protruding lip, and had seen perhaps 1,000 in my hurried southern trip. But no baby ever rested in the soothing arms of death that had fanned more flames of sorrow with his little fluttering breath. And no funeral ever glistened with more sympathy profound than was in the chain of teardrops that enclasped those mourners round. Rosa's sad old colored preacher at the little wooden desk, with a manner grandly awkward, with a countenance grotesque, with simplicity and shrewdness on his Ethiopian face, with the ignorance and wisdom of a crushed, undying race. And he said, "Ah, don't be weepin' for dis pretty bit of clay, for the little boy who lived there, he's done gone and run away. He was doing very finely, and he 'preciate your love, but his sure 'nuff father want him in the large house up above. Now he didn't give you that baby by 100,000 mile. He just think you need some sunshine, and he lent it for a while. And he let you keep and love it till your hearts were bigger grown, and dese silver tears you're sheddin's just de interest on de loan. Here's your other pretty children. Don't be making it appear that your love got sorta monopolized by dis little fella here. Don't pile up too much your sorrow on their little mental shelves, so's to kinder set 'em wondering if they're no account themselves. Just you think, you poor dear mourners, creepin' long o'er sorrow's way, what a blessed little picnic dis yer baby's got today. Your good fathers and good mothers crowd de little feller round in de angel-tended garden ob de big plantation ground, and dey ask him, was your feet sore, and take off his little shoes, and dey wash him, and dey kiss him, and dey say, "Now, what's de news?" And the Lord done cut his tongue loose. Den the little feller say, all our folks down in the valley tries to keep the heavenly way. And his eyes they brightly sparkle at the pretty things he view. Den a tear come, and he whispers, "But I want my parents too." But the angel chief musician teach that boy a little song. Says, if only they'll be faithful, they will soon be coming along. and he'll get an education that will probably be worth several times as much as any you could buy for him on earth. He'll be in the Lord's big schoolhouse without no contempt or fear, while there's no end to the bad things might have happened to him here. So, my poor dejected mourners, let your hearts with Jesus rest, and don't go to criticizing that are one what knows the best. He have sent us many comforts, he have right to take away. To the Lord be praise and glory now and ever. Let us pray. End of section. Section 34 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Der Spider and der Fly by Charles Follen Adams. I reads in Jacob's storybook a couple weeks ago one first-rate poem what I thinks der peoples all should know. I'd ask this good conundrum, too, which we should profit by. Will you undo mein parlor walk? Says the spider of the fly. Dot set me thinking. Right away, and when one afternoon a speculator he comes in and tells me pretty soon he have silver mine to sell, and ask me if I pie. I think of der experience of that blue pottle fly. Der other day, when on der cars I went by New York out, I meets a Fraulein on der train, who told me, mit a pout, she likes her Deutscher gentlemans, and tells me sit beside her. I says, my friend, I was no fly, if you was been a spider. I went into the smoking car where they was playing poker, and also have something they calls the funny little joker. Some money it was changing hands. They wanted me to try. I says, you was too previous. I don't was been a fly. On Central Park a smart young man says, Strauss, how was you been? And take me kindly by the hand, and ask of mein Katrine. He wants to change a 50 bill, and says his name was Schneider. Maybe, perhaps, he was all right. More like he was a spider. Most every day some swindling chap, he tries his little game. I cuts me out that spider piece, and put it in a frame. Right in mein store I hangs it up, and near it on the sly I gives a glob to send quick out the spiders on the fly. End of section. Section 35 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Lariat Bill by G.W.H. Well, stranger, 'twas somewhere in '69 I were running the Frisco Fast Express, and from Murder Creek to Blasted Pine were nigh on to 18 mile, I guess. The road were a downgrade all the way, and we pulled out of Murder a little late. So I opened the throttle wide that day and a mile a minute was about our gait. My fireman's name was Lariat Bill, a quiet man with an easy way, who could rope a steer with a cowboy's skill, which he'd learned in Texas, I've heard him say. The coil were strong as tempered steel, and it went like a bolt from a crossbow flung. And arter Bill changed from saddle to wheel, just over his head in the cab it hung. Well, as I were sayin', we fairly flew as we struck the curve at Buffalo Spring, and I give her full steam and put her through, and the engine rocked like a livin' thing, when all of a sudden I got a scare, for thar on the track were a little child, and right in the path of the engine there, she held out her little hands and smiled. I jerked the lever and whistled for brakes. The wheels threw sparks like a shower of gold. But I knew the trouble a downgrade makes, and I set my teeth and my flesh grew cold. Then Lariat Bill yanked his long lasso, and out on the front of the engine crept. He balanced a moment before he threw, then out in the air his lariat swept. He paused. There were tears in his honest eyes. The stranger listened with bated breath. "I know the rest of the tale," he cries. "He snatched the child from the jaws of death. 'Twas the deed of a hero from heroes bred, whose praises the very angels sang." The engineer shook his grizzled head and growled, "He didn't do no sich thing." He aimed at the stump of a big pine tree, and the lariat caught with a double hitch, and in less than a second the train and we were yanked off the track and into the ditch. 'Twere an awful smash, and it laid me out. I ain't forgot it and never shall. Were the passengers hurt? Let me see, yes, it killed about 40, but saved the gal. End of section. Section 36 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Elf Child, or Little Orphaned Annie, by James Whitcomb Riley. Little orphaned Annie's come to our house to stay, and wash the cups and saucers up, and brush the crumbs away, and shoo the chickens off the porch, and dust the hearth and sweep, and make the fire and bake the bread, and earn her board and keep. And all us other children, when the supper things is done, we sit around the kitchen fire, and has the mostest fun a-listening to the witch tales that Annie tells about, and the goblins it gets you if you don't watch out. Once they was a little boy wouldn't say his prayers, and when he went to bed at night, away upstairs, his mammy heard him holler, and his daddy heard him bawl, and when they turned the kivers down, he wasn't there at all, and they seeked him in the rafter room, and cubby-hole, and press, and seeked him up the chimbley flue, and everywheres, I guess. But all they ever found was this his pants and roundabout, and the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And one time a little girl had allus laugh and grin, and make fun of everyone, and all her blood and kin. And once when there was company, and old folks was there, she mocked 'em and shocked 'em, and said she didn't care. And thist as she kicked her heels and turned to run and hide, They was two great big black things a standing by her side, and they snatched her through the ceiling, for she knowed what she's about. And the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. And little orphan Annie says when the blaze is blue, and the lamp wick sputters, and the wind goes ooh, and you hear the crickets quit, and the moon is grey, and the lightning bugs and dew is all squelched away, you better mind your parents and your teachers fond and dear, and cherish them to loves you, and dry the orphan's tear, and help the poor and needy ones that cluster all about, the goblins'll get you if you don't watch out. End of section.
Section 37 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Alonzo the Brave and the Fair Imogene by Matthew Gregory Lewis. A warrior so bold and a virgin so bright conversed as they sat on the green. They gazed on each other with tender delight. Alonzo the Brave was the name of the knight, the maiden's the fair Imogene. "And oh," said the youth, "since tomorrow I go to fight in a far distant land, your tears for my absence soon ceasing to flow, some other will court you, and you will bestow on a wealthier suitor your hand." "Oh, cease these suspicions," fair Imogene said, "offensive to love and to me, for if you be living or if you be dead, I swear by the Virgin that none in your stead shall husband of Imogene be. If e'er by lust or by wealth led astray I forget my Alonzo the Brave, God grant that to punish my falsehood and pride, your ghost at the marriage may sit by my side, may tax me with perjury, claim me as bride, and bear me away to the grave." To Palestine hastened the hero so bold, his love she lamented him sore. But scarce had a 12-month elapsed, when behold, a baron, all covered with jewels and gold, arrived at fair Imogene's door. His treasures, his presents, his spacious domain, soon made her untrue to her vows. He dazzled her eyes, he bewildered her brain, he caught her affection, so light and so vain, and carried her home as his spouse. And now had the marriage been blessed by the priest, and revelry now had begun. The tables they groaned with the weight of the feast, nor yet had the laughter and merriment ceased, when the bell at the castle tolled 1. Then first with amazement fair Imogene found a stranger was placed by her side. His air was terrific, he uttered no sound, he spake not, he moved not, he looked not around, but earnestly gazed on the bride. His visor was closed, and gigantic his height, his armour was sable to view. All pleasure and laughter were hushed at the sight, all the dogs as they eyed him drew back in affright. All the lights in the chamber burned blue. His presence all bosoms appeared to dismay, the guests sat in silence and fear. At length spake the bride, while she trembled, "I pray, Sir Knight, that your helmet aside you would lay, and deign to partake of our cheer." The lady is silent, the stranger complies. His visor he slowly unclosed. "Oh, God! What a sight met fair Imogene's eyes! What word can express her dismay and surprise when a skeleton's head was exposed? All present then uttered a terrified shout, all turned in disgust from the scene. The worms they crept in, and the worms they crept out, and sported his eyes and his temples about, while the spectre addressed Imogene. "Behold me, thou false one, behold me!" he cried. "Remember Alonzo the Brave. God grant that to punish thy falsehood and pride, my ghost at thy marriage should sit at thy side, should tax thee with perjury, claim thee as bride, and bear thee away to the grave." Thus saying, his arms round the lady he wound, while loudly she shrieked in dismay, and sank with his prey through the wide yawning ground, nor ever again was fair Imogene found, or the spectre that bore her away. Not long lived the Baron, and none since that time to inhabit the castle presume, for chronicles say, that by order sublime, there Imogene suffers the pain of her crime, and mourns her deplorable doom. At midnight, 4 times in each year does her sprite, when mortals in slumber are bound, arrayed in her bridal apparel of white, appear in the hall of the skeleton knight, and shriek as he whirls her around, while they drink out of skulls newly torn from the grave. Dancing around them the spectres are seen. Their liquid is blood, and this horrible stave they howl, "To the health of Alonzo the Brave, and his consort the fair Imogene." End of section.
Section 38 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. An All-Around Intellectual Man by Thomas Masson. He was up in mathematics, had a taste for hydrostatics, and could talk about astronomy from Aristarchus down. He could tell what kind of beings were devoured by the Chaldeans, and he knew the date of every joke made by a circus clown. He was versed in evolution, and could instance the Borussia as a type of despotism in the modern age of man. He could write a page of matter on the distant kinds of batter used in making flitty gimcracks on the modern cooking plan. He could revel in statistics, he was well up in the fistics, knew the pedigree of horses dating way back from the Ark. Far and wide his tips were quoted, and his baseball stuff was noted. In political predictions he would always hit the mark. He could write upon the tariff, and he didn't seem to care if he was called up to review a book or write a poem or two. He could boil down stuff and edit, knew the value of a credit, and could hustle with the telegraph in a style excelled by few. He could tell just how a fire should be handled as a liar. He was sure to exercise a wise discriminative taste. He was mild and yet undaunted, and no matter what was wanted, he was always sure to get it first, yet never was in haste. But despite his reputation as a brainy aggregation, he was known to be deficient in a manner to provoke. For no matter when you met him, he would borrow if you let him, and he seemed to have the faculty of always being broke. End of section. Section 39 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Her Ideal by Kate Masterson. She wanted to reach an ideal. She talked of the lovely in art. She quoted from Emerson's essays and said she thought Howells had heart. She doted on Wagner's productions. She thought comic opera low. And she played trying tunes on a zither, keeping time with a sandal-shod toe. She had dreams of a nobler existence, a bifurcated, corsetless place where women would stand free and equal as queens of a glorious race. But her biscuits were deadly creations that caused people's spirits to sink, and she'd views on matters religious that drove her relations to drink. She'd opinions on co-education, but not an idea on cake. She could analyze Spencer or Browning, but the new kitchen range wouldn't bake. She wanted to be esoteric, and she wore the most classical clothes, but she ended by being hysteric and contracting a cold in her nose. She studied of forces hypnotic. She believed in theosophy quite. She understood themes prehistoric, and said that the faith cure was right. She wanted to reach the ideal, and at Claude's unpoetic would rail. And her husband wore fringe on his trousers, and fastened them on with a nail. End of section. Section 40 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Happy Farmer by Mortimer Crane Brown. The farmer is a happy man. His life is free from care, with naught to make his spirit sad or make him want to swear. All day among the cockleburs he gaily grubs and hoes, and money never troubles him, unless 'tis what he owes. How sweet at early dawn of day to rise before the sun, and hustle briskly round the barn till all the chores are done. To feed the cows, and milk them too, in brightly shining pails, the while they tread upon your corns and thump you with their tails. How sweet to hie into the field from breakfast smoking hot, and chase a plough all day around a 40-acre lot. And when it strikes against a stone, drawn by the horses stout, to have the handles prance around and punch your daylights out. How sweet at noon to lie at ease beneath some spreading tree, and hold a secret session with an ardent bumblebee. And when your rheumatism makes your legs refuse to go, how sweet to lie upon your back and watch your mortgage grow. And when the busy cares of day have faded with the light, how sweet to lie in peaceful sleep throughout the dewy night, and to hear the partner of your joys, at the first faint tinge of dawn, shout, "Come, old Granger, hump yourself, the cows are in the corn." End of section.
Section 41 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Son of a Soldier by Owen Oliver, reprinted from Today by kind permission of the author. You'll be sure to know my daddy, 'cause he wears a coat of red, and a rifle and a bayonet, and a helmet on his head, and he's very big and handsome, and his name is Sergeant Smith, and he's gone to fight the Boers that our Queen is angry with. He's the good Queen's faithful soldier, so he's angry too, of course. I expects they will be frightened when they know my daddy's cross. Daddy took me up and nursed me, for he went on Friday week. "Sonny boy," he said, "here's sixpence. Bless you, lad," and kissed my cheek. "Mind you write to me and tell me how you're doing at your books, how the baby's learning walking, how your little sister looks, how you're good and helping mother, That's the news I want to find. Mine is only printing writing, but my daddy doesn't mind. I'm my daddy's little soldier, and I've often heard him say soldiers ought to do their duty, though their officer's away. Mama says my duty's doing just what daddy said I should, but it's hard to do my lessons, and it's harder to be good. Teacher says, just keep on trying, they'll come easy by and by. Mama says I do grow better, and she'll write and say I try. Won't he smile? Unless they've shot him. Mama said perhaps they would, and she cried and cried till I cried, but I don't believe they could. No one couldn't hurt my daddy. If they did, when I grow tall, I shall take a sword and rifle, and I'll go and kill them all. If I woke up big tomorrow, off to battle I should go. Then I'd see who'd touch my daddy. Please, dear God, do make me grow. End of section. Section 42 of the Coo-ee Reciter. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Mile by David McKee Wright. By kind permission of the author. Sports day at the township. The station chaps mustered from Stewart's and Flaxland and Scots of Argyll. Good sport and good weather, and take things together, the event that they talked most about was the mile. Young Wilson from Flaxland could run like a greyhound. His times were a wonder, with no stopwatch by. From Stewart's, Jack Barry could go like old Harry, and Scots chaps had pinned all their faith on Mackay. The township had 3 in, and each looked like winning. The cunning boys smiled when you asked what they knew. I'd have sooner been resting than stripping and breasting the mark for the honour of old Waitahu. But the chaps that were with me would take no denial. I used to run once, and could do it today. It was no use complaining I wasn't in training. I was hard from the hills, and could show them the way. So they said, but the other blokes smiled at my chances. Well they might when I hadn't run for a year. I heard someone mutter, "He's softer than butter. He used to win once, but he won't finish here." That made me feel foolish. I wished I'd been training. I felt if I had, I could make someone spin. But still I was thinking, I'll finish like winking, though there isn't a ghost of a chance I can win. We all towed the line, but I wasn't excited. I fancied the race was all over for Dan. The slowest could do me. The pistol went through me. I jumped from the scratch, and the tussle began. I'd a yard at the start, but I lost it next moment. My word, they went off at a terrible bat. I saw in a minute I wouldn't be in it if Wilson and Barry kept moving like that. They went for a quarter, then Pierce of the township ran up to the lead like a young cannonball. I kept well behind them, I reckoned to find them about the 3/4, or else not at all. Second round, the same order, Mackay creeping closer, and Pierce of the township dropped out at the bend. They kept the pace going, but Wilson was blowing. I didn't expect to see him at the end. Third round, and by George, I was closing upon them. My long steady swing was beginning to tell. Mackay took the running. He'd played pretty cunning. I caught my first man at the 3/4 bell. Then I let myself out, and I tackled another, passed him quickly, and got up to Wilson at last. There was nothing left in him that once looked like winning. He gave up the struggle the moment I passed. Jack Barry was next, and we got going level. I brought him along till we tackled Mackay. The whole ground was moving, our pace was improving. By Jove, at the finish the grass seemed to fly. "Come on, Dan, come on, you can leave them both standing." "Jack Barry's the winner, Mackay leads the way." The yelling and raving, the rushing and waving, I'll always remember the finish that day. We were going eyes out, all 3 shoulder to shoulder. I gathered myself for the best I could do. I heard my name crying, I took the tape flying for the honour and glory of old Waitahu. End of section. End of the Coo-ee Reciter. Recording by Algie Pug, John Burlinson and Newgate novelist. Thank you for listening.